out of the stereo by choice. It wasn't actually stuck, but it was just, again, just like tight, punchy songs, and but lyrical content that is not bubblegum. I love that. You know, there's a lot of self-deprecation. I mean, the title alone, "Future Me Hates Me," you know, and there's just I don't know. I will have to see if this band has other albums. I think they probably do, but this again was my first exposure to them, and it's just, it was so good. I like, you know, again, something you were talking about, like Parquet Courts, something like that, where it's like these punchy, almost punk, but still pop, but also not that awful like pop punk. It's just, I don't know. The songs were fantastic. I loved the structure of everything. Great hooks. Very infectious. So the best Future Me.
That's a
best
great
Future
pick.
Me Hates Me, man.
Let's see. Oh, my other one would be this is the other metal pick, but it's the Deaf Heaven album, Ordinary Corrupt Human Love. Like I love their last two albums. Like I think I've seen them about 4 times in concert now. So
did you go see them this year?
Yeah, they're great. The new record's interesting to me because the best description I've heard of it was, I can't remember which critic said it, but I remember reading one review where critics like, there are two Smashing Pumpkins albums that came out this year. One was mediocre, one was great. The great one was not made by Smashing Pumpkins. And the Death Heaven album is basically, you listen to it, it's like, if Siamese Dream was a metal album, that's what that album would be like.
Oh, wow. Huh.
I mean, the music has that quality. Like, a lot of it is like, it's like shoegaze music turned up to 11. So it's incredibly loud, aggressive music that's quite beautiful. But what separates it from their other two releases is that they throw in more classic rock moments in it. Like, there's one song on there called Honeycomb, where the first like 3 or 4 minutes is like kind of a conventional Death Heaven song. So it's like, oh, it's like metal and shoegaze, and it's pretty and screamy. Mm-hmm. And halfway through the song, it takes a turn, and it turns into like Thin Lizzy for like a few seconds, for like a minute, where like the guitars are twinning together, and it just has like that kind of classical soloing.
Wow.
So it's an interesting album where it's like, it takes kind of their formula and has like more like these like arena rock and like accessible moments to it. Like, it's probably the most conventional thing they've made, but which isn't a criticism, because it's still an album that if I play it to most people, my friends like hard rock, they'll still be like, what is this shit? Like, why is that guy screaming all the time? But it's like, it's a beautiful album. I mean, and yeah, like when I saw them this year, like the new songs just sound incredible live. But all their songs, I mean, like their last 2 albums are great too. Like New Bermuda that came out I think 2 years ago is still one of my favorite records of the decade.
Oh wow,
yeah,
it's a pretty strong endorsement.
Oh, I mean, again, like they're one of the groups that really turn my head around on metal, because for a long time I had a real hard time dealing with the vocal. It's like the Cookie Monster vocal aspect of metal is a real hard thing for me to get over. But listening to them, I got it for the first time, because I listened to them, I'm like, oh, like his voice is almost like a harsh wind. Like you feel like on a remote cliff somewhere, like his voice has that quality where it's just like that in the distance from the waters. And I realized, like, oh, it's just like a textural element. Like, yeah, there are lyrics and the liner notes, and you can read along, but the scream is just a part of the texture of the album, of the music. Once I realized that, like, I was able to listen to it and appreciate it as a part of the whole, and not be like, oh, this is great if only this guy sang different. Where now I'm like, I couldn't imagine their music of clean vocals, because it would just be kind of weird to have actual words in their songs.
Oh yeah. Cat Power.
Oh, nice.
Wanderer.
Yeah.
Yep. I've been a big fan of Cat Power for a long time, and it seemed like she had this kind of arc where there was this that kind of more lo-fi sound of one of my favorites, Moonpix, which I know you revisited this year. And then you get your kind of Philly soul sound with the Greatest, and then she did her last album, Sun, which I loved, which was more of an industrial sounding kind of thing, and so I was kind of, I didn't know where she was going to go with this one. And again, it's been, I think Sun came out in like 2009 or something like that.
I think so. Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while for her. And so this one, I put it on, and just immediately it was kind of, I guess, akin to listening to You Are Free, but definitely more mature and experienced kind of sounding thing.
Yeah.
And it struck me, some of it is so sparse, and it's just her and kind of some lightly plucked piano chords in some instances, or some very, loosely strummed electric guitar chords, just kind of almost droning in some areas, I felt like, and just this kind of like whispered, like somehow on one hand tortured yet sensual kind of vocals from her, and it was just this kind of like slow burning, devastatingly beautiful album to me. And so I think it's one of her best in my opinion. Great stuff.
And you heard what happened to her last label, right?
No.
Oh, I loved it because the backstory behind that is like before she cut this album was they basically rejected it because they're like, we don't hear any Adele songs on here.
Are you serious?
And that's like, I think it's like Matador, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, she was on Matador.
Yeah, but I guess whoever was with Matador, who was managing or like was involved with her, is like, yeah, there's no hits. Like they played her an Adele album. Like, can you make something like that? And it's like, what kind of crack are you smoking if you think that Chan Marshall is going to be an Adele?
Holy
shit!
It's
insane. And she's a brilliant singer. She's a brilliant musician.
Absolutely.
But she's not going to give you Rolling in the Deep. Like that's the kind of work that she does. It'd be crazy to even think that she could.
Yeah.
Or would do that.
That's insane. That's been her label from pretty much the beginning.
Yeah, but that's what happened. That's why she moved to a new label. It's because they basically had like really bizarre like Adele commercial aspirations for her. And
that's insane, especially at this point in her career. I mean, barring, she had some success with The Greatest. I remember being kind of, thinking that kind of came out of nowhere, relatively speaking, for her, because she'd always been this kind of almost like you had to be in the know. It was like an indie darling kind of thing almost. Right. And then The Greatest got some radio play, and so which I guess when you're on an indie label can be death for you, because then they just want you to keep repeating that little bit of success. It's like, we're an indie label, but we've tasted success, so can you give us more of that?
Right.
I don't know, but this is not that, and it's better for it. So,
and I agree. Let's see. Oh, now
we're down to the top two.
Top two. And number two, for me, it's like Deaf Heaven. This is a group that I've got, like, pretty much every album they put out I've loved. But Beach House 7.
Oh, yeah.
Because what I liked about it is, like, they're one of those groups, like, yeah, you can make the argument that they're a bit Motorheady and that every album is essentially the same thing.
Sure.
But this album, what I like about it is it turns to a little bit more darker sonics, whereas as a whole, the album has a bit more of a sultry and slightly dissonant feel to it. Like, there's songs on there like Lemon Glow that almost sound like a menacing toy box. So there's them like playing with the formula a little bit, but it just has such a more of a darker and kind of more like bipolar feel to it than some of their other albums.
Huh.
And but it's still, it's still Beach House. It's still a really sublimely beautiful record. But I saw them back in Forum Festival and back in May at Darkosani, and when they play live now, it's like legitimately heavy music. Like, it's
really
densely loud, which I was not expecting. Like, it was almost listening to a shoegaze band at this point. Like, their wall of sound is actually pretty hard.
That's interesting. I wouldn't expect that from them, but
I wouldn't either.
Huh.
But 7 to me is definitely one of those albums, like, the more I listen to it, like, it just keeps growing on me. So that's kind of been a constant in my record listening diet this year. I've been going back to that record over and over again.
This is my number 2 is an album that, again, I wasn't so hot on initially. Like, I liked it, but it didn't seem super remarkable to me. And then the more I listen to it, the more I think it's kind of genius. And it's The Good, the Bad, and the Queen, Maryland.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
And I'm a big Damon Albarn fan, and I really liked the first Good, the Bad, and the Queen album. I think that first album was a little more driving, had a little more oomph to it. This one has much more of a resigned ballad feeling, but this to me is a lyrics album. And if you really pay attention to the lyrics, and it's this examination of it is a political album. Basically, it's kind of examining English life at this point, and he manages to have this kind of almost. Well, it's kind of suggested by the cover, which is this weird sort of black and white picture with like somebody who looks kind of like a 50s-ish film star, and then there's a dummy on it.
All right.
And he looks kind of like frightened a little bit. It almost looks like a Twilight Zone kind of still to me. And it's but lyrically it's exploring, okay, what does it mean sort of to be English now? And Albarn in interviews has said that in that way it's kind of akin to what he was trying to do with Park Life in '96, but in these kind of darker, it's like 2018 Britain is not like '96 Britain,
right.
And I think as a concept album, it's really good. And when you listen to a song that it's some of his most kind of heartbreaking balladry too. And I it's been a while since he's done that, because he's done a lot more with Gorillaz recently, and his solo projects have been kind of hit or miss for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And I really liked the last Blur album, but again, it seemed like they were trying to do, again, a sort of concept, British guys making an album of pop music in Japan. But this, and there's, because it's Paul Simon on, you've got the funky Clash bass line going through everything, and Tony Allen on drums is just
crazy, yeah.
Unbeatable. And to kind of hear that under everything, in some instances he's very restrained, but there's so much that he can still do while sounding restrained that it's an incredible percussive album. And there's a lot of keyboard textures to it. It's kind of a heavy album, but I really like it. I think that one, I know it's hit the top list in a couple of the British ones. I don't know how much play it's gotten around here. I think kind of around here, people know him for Gorillaz. Yeah. And what's interesting is, because that Gorillaz album, the Now that came out this year, it actually sort of seems like a companion piece in a way, because he's still exploring this kind of like dystopian aftermath. It's definitely a reaction to political climate and how things are just so ridiculously awful right now.
Ooh. Speaking of Tony Allen, did you hear his solo album last year?
I did. I loved his album last year.
It was incredible.
It was great. Absolutely fantastic. All right, sir. Our number ones.
All right, number ones.
Do we want to say them at the same time?
All right. So
on 3, 1, 2. Soccer
Fucked
Mommy.
Up. I have a feeling Soccer Mommy is going to be on there.
Yeah. But please. First, sir.
Sure. Fucked Up's new album, Dose Your Dreams, was they're a Canadian hardcore band I've been following for a while. I mean, I love their stuff because they're one of the groups they're not afraid to be ambitious. Like they release multiple like concept album rock operas, and they put out all these like Zodiac singles where they're not afraid to kind of pursue a crazy idea. But this new album is like a double album. It's a concept record about a guy named David who's basically a carryover character from their older albums, who's like an office worker who quits his job and meets a magical hobo lady who basically helps him drop out of society and enters this weird like otherworld. So the plot quickly doesn't make a whole lot of sense, like pretty much all concept albums. But what was amazing about that record is the amount of different styles that the album the band adopts is really impressive. Like there's one song on there where it sounds like it's basically doing Panda Bear, like a dead cold like channeling of that style.
Wow.
And there's another song where they do like a slow version of Slow Dive, which is astounding. Like these beautiful shoegazy numbers. I mean, they basically do a song that sounds like a Dinosaur Jr. track.
Oh, wow.
Called The One That I Want Will Come From Me. And it's funny because Jay Mascis is also on the album as a guest singer.
Oh, is he?
But not on that song. But it's interesting too because Damien Abraham, who's like their main singer, actually like sings on only half the album. Like he kind of took a back seat on this recording, so they have a lot more guest vocalists in the album. So they bring in people like this woman Allison who's in a band called "They'll Never Get to Heaven." She sings one of the songs, and she offers this like ethereal